Well, that's an interesting beginning for our Storytime connection today. And I've been kind of, I don't want to say that I've been neglectful in preparing because I've had this intention, but I've also had some conflicting energies in terms of what's asking for my attention, right? In the sense that we've got babies coming into the world and how, as we get closer and closer to delivery and arrival, how our priorities start to shift. Now, there's no babies in my immediate family, which is something to be grateful for at this time in my life, but the arrival of spring and the arrival of babies and the arrival of energy, as we are really now pretty much in the kapha season from the Ayurvedic perspective. And that means the middle of winter through spring is what we call the kapha season. And kapha is wet and cold and heavy and very earthbound and grounding. And yet, it's also spring cleaning energy, right? So as we move beyond winter, now for me, winter tends to be that let it be season where I notice stuff, but I don't do anything about it, right? Oh, look, the dust is accumulating, or oh, the work needs to be done. There's not space in my world for deep cleaning that might come in the spring in the winter. It's more about introspection. It's more about reflection. But somewhere between January and April, things shift, right? So that's the winter into the spring. And all of a sudden, I start noticing things and wanting to change them, wanting to impact my immediate surroundings. So, for example, it's a big season for donations, for cleaning out my closets, gathering up what no longer fits or fits the need. We got rid of a lot of dress attire for my husband this year because he's not going into the office anymore. So he doesn't need the dress pants and the ties. And it's hard to part with some of that nostalgia, not the going to work, but he loves his ties and he loves the energy of being dressed up. But what good is it doing, hanging and collecting dust in the closet or taking up space? And what is honestly an already full house, right? We have filled up during this season of prolonged introspection, not just the winter of 21, 22, but this period of COVID since March of 2020. And all of that kind of withholding and containing is now bursting forth. And that's not unlike the spring coming in terms of the flowers rising. So in addition to cleaning my closets, I've also been spending time the last week cleaning up my garden beds, getting rid of the mulch, the dead leaves that I use not only for insulation to the tender plants that live beneath the soil, but also to create temporary coverage and safety for the little wild animal creatures that live in my backyard and around the neighborhood. And so as I collect up those now moldy and wet, dried leaves, I'm clearing space for something. And yet that space is not new. That space is not unclaimed in the sense of my daily living. Nothing is removed from my plate. But I guess why I'm feeling a little uneasy is we're still in that transition. The Vata season, kind of dry and airy of winter, into the heaviness and the wetness and the spring, right? So case in point is the sense that I have a student who's back in town visiting after having moved away in the middle of this COVID and wanting to give her my time and my attention interrupted some of this transition and flow. And yet, what I'm trying to practice, and that's really the story here, the story of April for me in terms of our breathing and our meditation practice, in terms of our Dasha Shalana and our joint lubrication, moving towards greater freedom and spaciousness. The story here is, can I move from let it be, the winter season, to let it go in the spring season, in anticipation of a greater sense of let it flow, which in this analogy of Ayurveda might just be the return of the summer and the sun and the energy that comes with that extra heat, right? The sun gives us heat, but our bodies moving and wanting to engage in the story of living also creates heat to then fuel our flow, our movement. So I'm curious as to how that might land for you in terms of, are you feeling a lingering let it be, a lingering sense of, I've got time, I've got space, there's not really room to do the work that will come as we open our windows and our doors, open our garages, cleaning out the sheds, all those things that come as we transition into a new season, a new chapter for some of us, maybe even a fresh beginning. But that beginning doesn't really happen until we get rid of what might still be holding on from our former selves. As a child, I was raised in the church, and the parable of getting new clothes, putting on a new skin was rampant in the Christian faith, the Catholic Church, in which case our Sunday best for especially the season of Easter, to get a new outfit, to don a bonnet for those of us of the female persuasion, was a way to not only celebrate the beginnings again, but it was also a way to try on the old things and see what did or didn't fit. Because some years I got a new dress and new shoes. Other years it was just a new bonnet or just a new ribbon, to honor that sense of not everything has been outgrown. Not everything is ready to be let go of. So in light of that, I am grateful for the stability of this studio space. We're coming up on our second year here in Life's Work Yoga on East Church Street. That's so amazing to me. And in those now year and a half, going on 2 years, things have shifted and moved and relocated. Some things didn't make it inside the studio. Some things were brought in addition. Now that some of our props are being worn out and being replaced, this is all part of the spring cleaning and the renewal energy that comes with not only the spring and the fresh flowers, the opening of the windows and the doors, but I'm also seeing an influx of new students, which is so validating and exciting and encouraging, especially after these 2 years of COVID. So in that sense, my practice is about cultivating that gratitude. And as I've got Nick Han inspiring me in the sense that just stop and look is the last bit of the winter's energy, just to stop the vata spinning, stop the sense of hiding or running away from what is life inviting, and just observe what is here. And then in that pause of observation, can we begin again? Can we choose wisely what deserves our attention, what needs our attention? In other words, what matters most, so that whatever we do to show up and invite this shift of spring is an investment of the energy that perhaps we've stored up over the winter, stored up maybe in terms of some extra pounds, stored up in terms of some ease in the body from the rest of winter, or maybe stored up in terms of our ideas have been fertilized over this dormant period, in which case we can move into creation of the spring. And the story in my experience is that spring is often when I get those wheels turning to develop new products and new programs. And truth be told, there are no new programs on the horizon. So how do I direct that energy when I've made a commitment to my own well-being, to the studio's growth and expansion, and to honor what is already existing, meaning yoga living and life's work foundations for yoga teacher training and our studio schedule. There's so many things that have been developed in the last 2 years over COVID timeframe that have yet to fully blossom forth because of the restrictions in regard to COVID. So while spring is inviting me to get busy, I want to do it mindfully. And that is a commitment to honor what has been done and to choose wisely where I direct my attention so that I can be here to receive those who are coming forth, who are opening their own hearts and bodies and minds to the practice of yoga and looking for deeper connection. That connection that is truly possible here because of the seeds that have been planted, the roots that have been nurtured for those who have come through the practice in these last 2 years, those who continue to show up for practice virtually or in person and commit to our community work as well as our individual work. These roots have dug deep into the fertile soil that is yoga and provide that safe haven for those who are newly planting seeds into yoga today. So again, I am so grateful that this story continues, the story of Life's Work Yoga, the story of life itself and the rebirth of spring, and the celebration of those seeds coming forth and bulbs that are rising and will return again next year, and babies that are being born within our community, and faces and friends, maybe friends I've not yet met, continue to show up and to bloom forth. So let me just show you one more thing. Is this not the cheesiest, hokiest, and cutest thing ever? This is the inspiration of my eldest artistic child, and literally in days, hours of effort, built this springtime garden box for our window. And I love it. I love it because it's made from pipe cleaners and the hands of my child, putting into some tangible form the energy of spring, of fertile soil to rise and to open and to bloom. So this is in the front windows at the studio, as well as new planters and new garden beds with flowers to bloom forth to remind us that we can all begin again when we give ourselves the space and the time to let it be, to let it go, and embrace the invitation that's coming to let it flow. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being part of my community. Be well and take care of yourself and take care of those around you. And maybe, just maybe, you pause to notice what is and choose. Are you still in that season of, I gotta let it be? Or maybe your circumstances and your personal story are pushing you forward, not just to let go, but to start an intentional process and system for whatever's next, in which case you can embrace that sense of flow of breathing, moving, and resting in order to nurture yourself and this community that we're growing. Be well. Thank you for being here. Namaste.